What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. How is everybody doing? Welcome to your press conference, Ralf Rangnick press conference reaction for tomorrow's big Premier League clash at Old Trafford. It's Manchester United versus West Ham. It's getting to that point of the season now, isn't it? You know, when you remember the first encounter between the teams. You remember the first encounter between the teams earlier on in the season. And obviously vividly recall that game at the London Stadium with the whole last-minute drama, David De Gea and all that kind of stuff. It was impressive. Let me move that light down. That's annoying. There you go. I remember all of that. And it's just crazy to think that we're already into the second round of fixtures, kind of, if you haven't had postponements. But it's a big one tomorrow. It's a big one. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff, which is quite surprising. I was talking to Flex on the phone earlier, and I was talking about, you know, the game tomorrow and the plans for tomorrow, what we were going to do, what we were how we were feeling, what we were thinking about when it came to the game. And we both sort of said that it's surprising that this one isn't televised, because it's a 3 p.m. kickoff, Old Trafford, not televised. Why? Because just rules when it comes to 3 p.m. kickoffs. Let's not even get into it. But we were talking about it's surprising because we've sort of been televised, you could argue, for lesser games, certainly in the last couple of months or so. And this is a big one. This is the race for the top four. If you could consider Manchester United and West Ham contenders, which you still can, wouldn't say they're favourites, but you can still absolutely say they're contenders. So it's a huge game. And obviously today, Ralf Rangnick had his pre-match press conference ahead of the game. And some interesting questions, some interesting updates when it comes to team news and it comes to a bit of the fallout, I suppose, from the Brentford victory on Wednesday. So there's plenty to get into. As always, we're going to get into all the quotes. We're going to try and break it down. We're going to try and analyse what Ralf Rangnick means, what he says, the implications of it, and give a bit of opinion, and just have a bit of a chat, have a bit of fun here. So as always, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Let me know where you're watching from as well. As always, we can get your comments up on the screen. Such as Fat Thor, who says, "Hey Owen, welcome, Fat Thor." I tell you what, I saw a thing the other day. I'm a big Marvel fan. You know me, I'm a big Marvel fan, and it's impossible to avoid like spoilers and leaks. I mean, it's one thing when a film or a television series comes out and you just don't get around to watching it for a couple of days and it gets spoiled on social media. That's one thing, but it's another where it's like we're talking about, you know, full on. Leaks coming out of the production before it's even aired. I saw a thing about Doctor Strange, and I saw a thing about Moon Knight, which you saw the trailer about. I'm just doing my best to try and avoid all these spoilers. It's so difficult. But Fat Thor, that's my tangent because I'm thinking about Endgame. Nevertheless, we'll move on. Zayn Miassi with the super sticker. He's got this one's a hippo, and I don't know if it's sort of shaking its fist. I mean, I would assume you are referring to the game last night. It did not go well for you, but I'm kind of in the position where I'm hesitant to sort of mock Arsenal because of the position that Manchester United find themselves in at the moment. So, you're welcome, Zayn. You're welcome here whenever. And as Zayn did, you can get your super chats up on the screen through the $ below or super sticker too. Right, let's get on to the press conference that Ralf Rangnick just had ahead of tomorrow's big game at Old Trafford. Be sure to smash a like on the like button too and subscribe. Road to 100k. First question came from Anita Jones, who asked about some team news. Obviously, there were a few names out against Brentford, such as Jadon Sancho. We know that he was out of the squad due to personal issues. He attended a funeral, I think it was on Wednesday, so he was unavailable for the game. Was asked about an update. Has he trained since then? Is he going to be available for tomorrow? And this is what Ralf Rangnick had to say, quote, "He didn't train yesterday because he still asked us to not train. He attended a funeral on Wednesday. It still affected him quite a lot. He is expected back to training this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Right now, I'm not sure if he will be available for the game tomorrow. It was an important member of the family, somebody he was close to all of his life. I have to wait and see, speak to him before training and after training and take the decision." So Jadon Sancho is a bit 50-50 at the moment. I think Ralf Rangnick's biggest concern, well, there's two, isn't there? There's one that he hasn't obviously trained, I would assume, for the majority of this week, which is an issue. Preparation for a lot of managers, let alone Ralf Rangnick, because we know it's very calculated, is key. So if Jadon Sancho hasn't trained that much, his first training session of the week looks to be this afternoon. I would say it's very, well, I would rule out that he's probably starting tomorrow. That for me just isn't going to happen. As much as being on the bench, of course, that's possible. We did kind of see it somewhat, I suppose, against Brentford, where You did look at the bench, and we have seen this in the last few games where you look at the bench, it's like, what really options do we have? Which seems crazy considering we've got this big squad of players. I think he'll be on the bench. I think he'll be on the bench too. I think he'll make it. I don't think he'll be left out the squad. But there's also a human element to it as well. We're not just talking about a physical elements here of not training. We're talking about the mental element of it as well. We're talking about someone that's lost a really close family member, is in the grieving process too. That's tough. That's really, really tough. And obviously, health, not just physically but mentally, is paramount, not just for professional footballers, for life. So if Jadon Sancho doesn't feel that he's mentally ready to play the game, then he shouldn't be in the squad, because the human element has to come first. I know people do a lot of criticism to professional footballers, but ultimately these are human beings at the end of the day, and to be an effective manager you have to manage not only the physical traits but their mental traits as well. So I think that Sancho will probably be on the bench tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised either if he's left out of the squad. It does seem to be that we have more players coming back, so if we've got other people available, I think Rangnick will say, you know what, you've only trained maybe one day this week. You might not still be in the best headspace. We'll sit it out. You can sit this one out. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. As David Lee says, be sure to like, share and subscribe. Anton says, thoughts on Thomas Frank's comments after the game? We kind of touched on this on the full view. After the game against Brentford, I felt that obviously he was very salty, and sometimes as a fan, when you've won a game and you see the opposition manager come out and rant and rave and about how they got screwed over, but you know me, I love a shithouse win, love it. It's one of those things. Like and we've kind of grown up with it, or certainly I have, of Man United, especially in the Fergie years, maybe not playing that well and winning games, or just last minute winners. It's great, isn't it? And you do sort of revel in this, seeing opposition fans or managers or players get so upset and annoyed, especially when you win the game. So I enjoyed it from that perspective. Some of the things he was saying when it came to little old Brentford and they changed the side for us, like I said, I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think you can say we've made such a great transition to the Premier League and the Brentford Community Stadium's a really tough place to come and this, that and the other, and then on the flip side say, but we're little old Brentford. Well, you're either a Premier League team or you're not. You're having a good season. Manchester United aren't. It's an away game. It's not an easy game for United. So what if they changed? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you're playing. The thing that actually matters is that you win the game. However you do it, to me, as long as it's in the parameters of the rules, who cares? Who cares? So that part of it, I didn't really care. The Jadon Sancho thing, obviously, it was a case of, I don't know if he's come out and apologised or corrected that. I'm sure he will, because his comments about, they dropped a £72 million player out the side to play little old Brentford, he must not know the circumstances as to why Jadon Sancho wasn't in the squad. If he did, that's another question, but we just don't know that. So it's a bit of a jump to say that he did know that at this period of time. I'm assuming he didn't, and he would just be a case of, I'm assuming he would apologise. Super chat from Red Baron, appreciate the contribution, says, in this country, especially where money is the priority, numero uno, mental health is viewed as secondary or a lack of will. The stigma is around it is terrible. The stigma is still there, absolutely, when it comes to mental health nowadays. I think the narrative and the discussion is far more open and broad, which is a good thing, but there is still way, way more to go from it. I mean, I'm a huge, myself, mental health advocate. I think everyone, to be honest with you, and I think, again, this is a wider discussion, not so much on football, but I think everyone has their mental health struggles and mental health problems and battles. It's just a case of severity, and it's so difficult to really sometimes treat or understand, because each and every person is different, and ultimately it's very difficult to know what's going on in someone's head, and especially when the symptoms sometimes are invisible. It's a tough thing, but the best way to overcome it is to, like you say, break the stigma about it, smash the stigma, talk about it, be open, and be proud. Everyone wears scars, and it's a case of being proud of your scars and saying, this is me for who I am. So I agree. I think there is still a mental health stigma around, but like I said, any manager, and this isn't just football, that can manage people. When you're a manager, you manage people. Whether they're footballers, whether they're accountants, whether they're whoever, you manage people, and it's being the most effective manager of people. And each person is different. Let's move on. Next one is question was from Simon Peach, who spoke about this horrible story that kind of broke in the last hour or so regarding Victor Lindelöf and his house being broken into. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but Victor Lindelöf's wife posted on Instagram that their house was broken into whilst Victor Lindelöf's wife and their child was actually at home. It's a horrible story, and it's a story, to be fair, that we see too often when it comes to professional footballers. This isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it's horrific and it's so traumatic it must be. So real sympathies go to Lindelöf, his wife and his child. Manchester United also released a statement saying they were helping the player wherever they could, and it was a horribly traumatic event. And if you knew anything about it, or if you have any details, to get in touch with the police. So the question from Simon Peach was obviously that story about Victor Lindelöf's house being broken into. How is Lindelöf and the family, and how are the club supporting him? This is what Ralf Rangnick had to say, quote, "I spoke with him at length in our flight back from London, and also this morning. We spoke for 20-25 minutes. He told me what actually happened, that it was a traumatic event, especially for his wife and 3-year-old son. He said to me right now he needs to stay at home. He doesn't want to leave his wife and his family on their own, which I can fully understand, being a father of 2 children myself. We agreed he would not be on duty tomorrow for the game." So Victor Lindelöf isn't obviously with the squad right now. He's not training, and he isn't going to be available for the game tomorrow because he needs to be with his wife and his child. And absolutely. There's not even a discussion about it. I don't even really want to go into it. Well, it's a loss for the game. Who gives a shit about the game? Like, honestly, when it comes to something like that, when your house has been broken into with your wife and your child there, and they've had to go through we're talking about a 3-year-old kid as well, a 3-year-old child, to experience that, the trauma involved in that. Who cares about a football match, honestly? And I know this is a football fan channel, and that might be, a bit of a stretch to say, but it's true. Family and health is always the priority in life. Always. There are certain levels of priorities, and I understand this is a job, I understand this is football, I understand there is money involved, all that kind of stuff, but we're talking about the fundamental pillars of life. We're talking about family, and we're talking about health. So Victor Lindelöf feels that, and rightfully so, that he doesn't want to leave his family because, why would you? After they've gone through that kind of trauma, that would just be it must be horrendous. It must be absolutely horrendous. I can only imagine what his wife and child went through. So Victor Lindelöf won't be available for tomorrow, and hopefully their family is coping the best as possible, and hopefully those that committed that crime get caught, because ultimately that's just not acceptable, is it? It's just not, and it's wrong. And it bears thinking about what they've gone through. So fingers crossed they're all okay. The follow-up question to it was about Jesse Lingard. Of course, Jesse Lingard, there's been a lot of discussion about his future over the last month or so, certainly in the January transfer window, but specifically over the last 24 hours. There's that story about Newcastle making a fresh approach for the player, talking initially about a loan deal. Man United have said we don't want to let Jesse Lingard go on loan. He's got 6 months left on his contract. The contract's expiring in the summer. So reportedly Newcastle, because they're desperate because obviously they need players in to actually improve their precarious position in the Premier League. They also feel like certain Premier League clubs aren't willing to sell to them because of their ownership and all this kind of stuff. They're desperate, so they're throwing money around. So reportedly, they've put a bid in or approached Jesse Lingard about a permanent transfer. There's been talks about £12 million, £13 million. Certainly Jesse Lingard getting, I guess, a substantial wage rise, or at least getting the wages that he's currently on right now, being paid by Newcastle as well. So Rangnick was asked, what is the latest on Jesse Lingard, and ideally would he also like to bring in a January signing himself? We've been linked to Haidara, Zakaria, all of these players we've been linked to in January at different points. So what's the situation there? And this is what Rangnick had to say, quote, "He's a really good player. It's normal at other clubs. Newcastle showed interest in him, but I'm not the one dealing with that. If you ask me now what will happen in the next 10 days, I cannot answer that question, I'm afraid." And I think he's done this a couple of times, hasn't he, Ralf Rangnick? And I credit him. I do. Because he's been very transparent when it comes to the transfer situation. He's been asked about incomings. He's been asked about outgoings. He's been asked about player contracts. He's been asked about agents saying that their players want to leave in the case of Anthony Martial. He's been asked about that a lot, and he is very transparent with it when he just says, I'm not dealing with it. It's not. I think in an ideal world, Ralf Rangnick would want to have way more of an input in this whole situation. And maybe when he becomes this consultant, whatever that consultancy is, once his interim period as Manchester United manager ends, maybe he will be way more involved in that process and way more involved in that discussion. But it would appear right now he's just not involved in it. And it's something that I don't really know if anything's actually changed that much from when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was in charge. We know that essentially the recruitment process at Manchester United was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made recommendations of players he would like, or made recommendations of positions he would like Manchester United to improve, and maybe the recruitment department, whether that's director of football, whether that's chief scouts, whether that's whoever, data analysts come back to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and go, right, this is a list of players we think we could get. Do you like any players from here? He makes a recommendation. United try and get that person. If not, they go to something else. So I think that Ralf Rangnick has maybe the same amount, or maybe even less, I suppose, of a input about the whole transfer situation anyway. So when he gets asked these questions in the press conference, is Jesse Lingard going to leave? Is Anthony Martial going to leave? Are you going to bring in Haidara? Are you going to bring in any players in January? He's not really saying, he's certainly not saying, I don't want to. You know, look at what he's saying. He's not saying, no, we're not going to do any business because I'm happy with the players I've got. He just keeps saying, I'm not involved in that process. And it's smart. It's very smart, because if he came out and said, well, ideally, I'd want to bring in a defensive midfielder. Ideally, I'd want to bring in a central midfielder. I want to bring in whoever. I want to bring in this ex-player. I want to bring in this person. But it's not my call. You know, he would put a lot of pressure on the board. And I think he just realised, you got to pick your battles. You got to pick your hill to die on. And maybe this just isn't it. He's firefighting, as Flex would say. So every time he's asked, he just goes, I'm not involved in that process, because maybe if he was more involved in that process, he would say, yeah, actually get rid of Jesse Lingard. I've said it before, I'm transparent with it. I think that when I saw that yesterday, the Jesse Lingard stuff, when I saw that Jesse Lingard, Newcastle made a fresh approach, whatever it was, 12, 13 million, I went, take that and run. Honestly, take that and run, because we don't deserve it. With the way that we've handled contracts and the way that we get rid of players and the outgoings at the club, we're so bad at it, really bad at it. And the fact that a club is coming in to sign a player in the Premier League that has 6 months left on his contract and is willing to pay, 12, 13 million, that's incredible. That is incredible. Like, we don't deserve to get that much player. Jesse Lingard, obviously, if he was on a longer term contract, would be worth way more than that, obviously. But he's not. And he's made his intentions clear. This isn't a guy that's debating his future about staying at Manchester United. He's leaving. He's leaving at the end of the season on a free. And most clubs, Premier League clubs, know that. So they look at it and go, why would we buy him now? Because we'll make an offer to him in the summer. Newcastle are desperate. And Man United have these terms of certain clubs they're willing to sell to and certain clubs that they're not. They don't want to strengthen a top four rival, so they're not going to sell Jesse Lingard to a Spurs or whoever. But or West Ham, of course, who are interested because they consider them a top four rival this season. The club we're playing tomorrow. So you've got to cut out all of those. But at the same time, they don't want to let him go on a loan, so that doesn't work for them. So again, I mentioned, you look at this sort of Venn diagram of clubs Manchester United are willing to sell to, and it's on a permanent transfer. It fits right in. It fits right in there. And I just say it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But he does talk about this a bit later on, Ralf Rangnick, and I think he does bring up some good points. We'll move on there. I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the Jesse Lingard situation? I think, for me, it feels like a no-brainer. If Newcastle put this offer in, 12, 13 million, take it and run. But would you accept it? What do you think about it? Let me know in the live chat. Next question was from Andy Mitton. And asked about Diogo Dalot. This was quite an interesting one. He said that obviously Dalot was not getting a lot of playing time before you came in, speaking to Ralf Rangnick. What is he doing right? Which areas is he impressing you on the pitch? And where does he need to improve going forward? Rangnick had quite a lot to say about this. He said, quote, offensively, he has a lot of assets. He did well for somebody who can deliver crosses from the wing. He can take on players in one-on-one situations. There is still space for improvement in his defensive work. He's not that much of a defensive fullback, but more of an offensive fullback, but this is normal. There are quite a few other fullbacks in other clubs where it is the same. Quite a few of these fullbacks played at right or left wingers. Therefore, so far with developments I've had while I'm here with Diogo and Telles, I'm happy. They get more game time now because Luke Shaw is injured and Aaron Wan-Bissaka is still ill. So sometimes it's quite nice, isn't it, that you get almost proved right by a manager. And I think that's been the discussion and the discussion point for a lot of fans when it comes to Diogo Dalot. Offensively, he's decent going forward. He can get crosses into the box. He can take players on. But maybe defensively, he's not as good as Aaron Wan-Bissaka, or he's not as good as Aaron Wan-Bissaka defensively. And ideally, if you could merge both fullbacks together, you'd get maybe the fullback that we're looking for right now. So it's refreshing to see Ralf Rangnick say, look, I'm happy with him going forward. I'm happy with what he offers us going forward in terms of getting crosses into the box. Although it must be said, against Brentford, he put some shockers in as well. But he did play well, and he has been playing well recently. So it's quite refreshing to hear Ralf Rangnick say, I'm happy with some of his offensive work, but he obviously needs to improve defensively. And I think the fan base would unanimously agree with that. And it's also worth pointing out, whilst I do think that Rangnick has essentially made his decision, certainly on the right-back side of things, he prefers Dalot over Wan-Bissaka. It's obvious at this point. I'm not sure as much whether he's made his full decision when it comes to the left-back side of things. I think he probably prefers Telles, but he's open to playing Luke Shaw. But he did point out in that last bit of the quote there that they're getting more game time, in the majority now because Luke Shaw has been injured, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, in fairness to him, has also had injuries and illness as well. So that's the reason why they're going to be playing tomorrow. The fullbacks tomorrow are going to be Telles and Dalot once again because Shaw's injured, Wan-Bissaka's out. So it kind of makes the decision easy for him. Once we've got both sets of fullbacks back and fit, I still think he would prefer to go for Dalot over Wan-Bissaka. The left-back one, I think he takes it game by game. I really do. But he hasn't really made a decision on that. And if reports are to be believed, which you can't always believe reports, he's essentially said to Manchester United that a lot of the defenders at the club aren't good enough and we need to get a new right back. We might even need to get a new left back. We might need to get more centre backs in. So he's had his period of looking at these players. He knows who he rates and who he doesn't, in my opinion. James Dixon, obviously, Big James on the channel, says, Ethan Laird doing bits on loan too. I think Wan-Bissaka could be one to sell in next season as so he has good resale value. Again, I think it depends. Oh, gosh, I'm all over the place there. I think it depends. I do that a lot as well. Do you know what it is? I'm so sort of talk with my hands so much that with this being so close to me, I always catch it. What was I talking about? Oh, Wan-Bissaka being sold. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think it's just going to be a case of who we bring in. Do we bring Laird in? Do we go down that route, or do we buy someone completely else? I think that's something to consider in the future. Next question from Ben Ranson. Move back to the Jesse Lingard discussion, and I think this is where we got more about maybe Lingard's side of it and where Ralf Rangnick is seeing this whole Lingard situation as opposed to whether he will leave or whether he'll stay, even though he's not involved in it as well. He said, Ben Ranson asked, Jesse Lingard, this kind of touches on these reports too. Is he worth more as a player in the squad if you need him because of illness and injury in comparison to a fee you might get for him this month, whether it's a loan or a permanent deal? And this, as I mentioned, kind of touches on these reports that reportedly United are very hesitant to let go Jesse Lingard on a loan. And it's the same for a lot of players where it's, Donny van der Beek or whether it's Anthony Martial, whether it's whoever. The discussion has been United are reluctant to let these players go, even though they're not using them, even though they're just sitting on the bench, or sometimes they're not even in the squad. We don't want to use them just in case we have injuries, just in case we have illness, just in case FC, basically. And I can understand that logic. I can understand that logic when it comes to, obviously we are doing a season with in the middle of a pandemic. We are dealing with COVID outbreaks at clubs. We are dealing with injuries and the Africa Cup of Nations, and you do need a bigger squad. But these players generally that are unhappy because they're not playing, if you look at these examples of Jesse Lingard, Donny van der Beek, Dean Henderson, you look at all of them, they are not playing. It's not a case of rotation. It's not a case of anything. They are just not playing. And if it's a case of but we need players for the bench, then go with the under-23s. Do it, because Jesse Lingard is not playing games. Plus, he had 2 Premier League starts this season. Dean Henderson, I've already made my opinions known on it, and I know people say that you need a good backup, and we're in cup competitions. That's what Ralph Rangnick keeps saying, right? We're in 3 competitions. We need 3 keepers, all that kind of stuff. Look, but he's not going to play. He's not going to play tomorrow. He's not going to play in the Premier League for the rest of the season. He's not going to play in the FA Cup, maybe against Middlesbrough because it's a team from the Championship, but he's not going to play against Atletico Madrid either. I know people will say injury, but when does David De Gea get injured? Very rarely. And people will say drop off in form. David De Gea has been arguably our player of the season so far. He saved us on Wednesday and he'll continue to save us for the remainder of the season. Jesse Lingard as well. We know his qualities. We know what he can offer. In the reverse fixture of this game, earlier on in the season, he scored an absolute rocket of a goal. That won us the game. That's what he can offer. But he's not playing. He's got right to be upset because he's not going to play. So let him go. And this idea of, but they're worth more, but we might need them. But we haven't. We just haven't. So for me, let him go. But Ralph Rangnick brings up a good point here. He said, quote, "It's the question of what does the player want? What other options does he have? Does he have a chance to get game time? I cannot answer for him. It has to be done by the players. He's a very good player, a technical player. Here at Manchester United, it's not so easy. We have other players that can play in that position, and we cannot change from one game to another 5 or 6 positions. I know his contract is expiring in the summer. The question is, what does he want to do? I wouldn't be unhappy if he stayed here for the rest of the season because he is a player who can always play and I know the level." So once again, I think Ralph Rangnick is stressing, I'm not involved. I'm not involved in contracts. I'm not involved in transfers. And I don't know if that's just because he's an interim manager or that's just the way Manchester United do things. But he does raise a really good point in that he can't really answer that question because the ball really is in Jesse Lingard's court. I truly do think if Jesse Lingard went to Manchester United now with this Newcastle offer, if it's on the table or not, we don't know if Newcastle have officially made that offer. It's just reports that the deal would be worth 12 million, 13 million. But I think that if Jesse Lingard went to Manchester United at this point and said to him that Newcastle, they want to buy me permanently right now, I'm leaving in the summer on a free. I'm telling you, I'm not going to sign a new contract. When my contract expires, I'm out of here. So this is your last chance to get a transfer fee for me. Otherwise, I'm leaving on a free. I'm willing to go. I want this transfer. I'm excited by it. I'm interested in it. I'm willing to leave right now. I think if he pushed it enough, he'd probably get that deal through. But as Ralph Rangnick says, it's up to Jesse Lingard. I've always felt that Lingard was waiting to the summer because he was essentially doing a Paul Pogba in that, and we don't necessarily know if Pogba's fully made his mind up whether he's leaving or not in the same case as Lingard, but I think he probably has, frankly. But I think Lingard's looking at it as, I'll wait till the summer, my contract will expire, and the clubs I'm not allowed to go to right now because Manchester United won't let me go to right now, i.e. Spurs or West Ham, I can negotiate with them then, and I can make that deal possible. I liked it in London. I liked it at West Ham. At the end of the season, I can see where West Ham is. I can see where Spurs is. Spurs might be in the Champions League come the end of the season, right? We all saw that incredible turnaround they had against Leicester, and Conte's getting them playing. There's an argument to be made that Spurs are probably the favourites for that 4th spot right now. And if that is the case, United aren't going to sell Jesse Lingard to Spurs in this January transfer window. Not going to happen. But at the end of the season, Manchester United can't do anything. Jesse Lingard is completely in control of his own destiny. And if that is the case, I think he might just weigh it out. And what better way to stick it also to Manchester United of Man United actually being able to get a fee for him when they didn't think they were going to, and actually Lingard going, you know what? Nah. Nah, I don't feel like it, actually. I'm not gonna, I'll just wait. I'll sit on my contract, it's fine. You still have to pay me, and you're not going to get a fee. I don't think Jesse Lingard's like that, to be honest with you, but if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. And on the flip side of this, I mentioned this before, going to Newcastle right now, it is still risky. We don't know where Newcastle are going to finish. They can sign all of these players in January. They can still get relegated. Now, I'm sure all of these players will have release clauses in their contracts and clauses that will say, if you do get relegated, I can go elsewhere. That probably will be the case. But if Newcastle want him that desperately, and I think Lingard might have this discussion with Newcastle anyway, that my contract's expiring in the summer, I'll wait and see if you stay up. If you stay up, I'll join you on a free transfer. How about that? And you can give me this ginormous signing on fee that he'll probably get if he joins Newcastle on a free in the summer. So I wouldn't be surprised ultimately if he does stick around, because he'll be completely in control of his own destiny. It's just a case of, like Ralf Rangnick says, what does Jesse Lingard want? Because ultimately, whatever he wants right now, he'll probably get, apart from a move to a top 4 rival. If what he wants is a move to Spurs or West Ham, he won't get it now, but he can get that in the summer, because he can control everything. If he wants to move to Newcastle now, he can go now, because he can probably force that deal through. And I think that's kind of what Ralf Rangnick is suggesting there. Now, if he wants to play more for Manchester United, is he going to get that? No. That's been established at this point. That was established, to be honest, before the beginning of the season. Everyone was surprised he stuck around anyway. So now it's just a case of, what does Jesse Lingard want to do? Because if he wants to stay and wait it out, he can do that. The next question was from Michael Gray, and this stayed on the topic of transfers. Said, if United wait until the summer for transfers, which it looks like we are going to do, how much of a building process is that going to be if we don't even know who the manager is going to be at that time? Ralf could still be an interim manager. Ralf could be permanent manager. We could have someone else come in. What does that look like in terms of Ralf Rangnick, and how is he planning that building process, knowing that he might not be in charge when the transfers come around? Rangnick said, quote, my full focus, as I've indicated, is to win games with this team. In order to win games as a team, we need to develop as a team. We need to improve in some areas. We have done so in the last couple of weeks, but there is still more space in vast areas of our game, and this is where my focus is. I'm not dealing with what might happen in 4 or 5 months. That is not at the top of my list. It's about how we can win the game against West Ham, then in the cup against Middlesbrough, and then Burnley, playing Southampton and Brighton at home. That is where my focus is. So once again, basically every time he gets asked about his future, when he gets asked about the summer, when he gets asked about transfers, he just says, my focus is on games, my focus is on results. And it is a generic football answer, but what do you expect him to say? But it's also true, why it would be, for me, quite naive if his focus was on who are we going to sign in the summer, because there are way too many questions up in the air. And it kind of goes back to Michael Gray's initial question. We have no idea what the summer looks like. I don't think anyone can say what Manchester United are going to look like on the first day of next season. We don't know who the manager is going to be. We don't know which players are going to have left and which players are going to have joined. We know that we've got a different CEO at this point. We don't actually know what the coaching staff's going to look like. We don't really know what the footballing structure is going to look like as well. There is so much that is going to change at Manchester United over the course of the next 6 months or so. So it is really difficult to do this rebuild process, and maybe, as Ralf Rangnick says, maybe now isn't really the time to be focusing on that. You maybe can have a couple of people at the club that maybe are looking long term in terms of strategy and in terms of what's going to happen in the future, and I'm sure those people are, directors of football, etc., are looking at who the next manager is going to be and what Manchester United are going to look like next season. But as far as Ralf Rangnick, he's an interim manager, so he's got an interim duration on his contract, so he's looking on just the interim, right, aka right now. He's looking at the results ahead of him, and he's looking at the matches that are coming in the next couple of weeks. That's all he can do. Because he said he's not involved in contracts, he's not involved in transfers, so you can't even really do much in the future. That whole consultancy thing, that's coming in the future, but he doesn't know about it right now. So it is difficult, and that's why we're in a bit of a unique position with Manchester United at the moment. That this rebuild we know is coming and it needs to happen, but it's almost difficult to lay foundations for right now because there are so many questions that are yet to be answered, and until they are answered, we can't actually lay any foundations down anyway. We don't know if we're going to be in the Champions League next season, and that's Ralph's job right now, is to make sure we are in the Champions League. The best thing that I think Ralf Rangnick can do right now, we're talking about this rebuild process, is set Manchester United up as best as you can. That's by getting in the top 4 and maybe winning a trophy. Probably the FA Cup is our best shout. That's the best thing he can do to set up or begin this rebuild process. Lay down some kind of foundation, even if it's just the bare minimum. And even that's a big task. So the summer and the rebuild that's going to come over the summer, that's way in the distance for him at the moment. And I know that some United fans might like it if he said, oh yeah, we are thinking about what we're going to be doing in the summer. And I'm sure people at the club are. But if he said that, you'd be like, mate, you're an interim manager. Focus on now. Because now isn't great. And we still need to improve a lot now. So that should be the focus. As Ted says, Ralf needs results. End of. He also said he wants to implement his play style, but also needs to keep results coming in. I agree. I absolutely agree. And United supporter says, team is more important. Yes, that was a big, you can see it in the title. That is what we're going to get onto shortly. The next question was from Carl Anker. He moved on to a bit of a tactical discussion and talked about, obviously, Manchester United moved to 3 at the back mid-game against Brentford. And Rangnick had spoke previously that he wished he did it against Villa, but he did implement it, of course, against Brentford on Wednesday. He asked, how is Rangnick finding this adaptation process and being flexible in games to move to different formations? This is what Rangnick said, quote, well, in a way, football, it's a bit like chess. Things can change so quickly during the game. If you watched last night's semi-final in the Carabao Cup, things can change from 1 minute to another. In some parts of the game, you are dominating the game, pinning the other team back, and all of a sudden it can be different. Therefore, it is important to be able to react to what the game needs now, to what the team needs. It was logical with the experience we had at Villa Park to do it differently this time, and it was clear we bring on Harry Maguire and then defend this 2-0 result. We even scored a third one on the counter-attack, and it was clear we were going to win. I think that this is a bit of a weird discussion point. Like, some people are fascinated that a team would change formation mid-game. It's football. It's elite level football. Like, plenty of clubs do it, and I know that you do have teams like Liverpool, and you do have teams like Man City and Chelsea to a point where their formation and their system is so fixed, that's how they play, and they dominate teams because that's how they play, but they don't need to change mid-game. And to be honest, even that's not necessarily true, because if you're Liverpool and you're 1-0 up, you still change, maybe not the system, but you change certainly the mentality. Or Jurgen Klopp says to his fullbacks, you know what, maybe don't push up when we've got 5 minutes left. Let's just keep the ball. Systems change. You have to be agile during games. You have to be flexible during games. And Ralf Rangnick said it, it's not in that quote there, but he mentioned that teams need to be able to change formations mid-games. That's how football works. You have to react to the game that's going on. So Alex Ferguson used to do it all the time. Switch to how it's, you're winning a game and you go, right, let's not. It's illogical to be like 1-0 up or to be up in a match, but knowing that team could come back in at any point, especially in an away game, and not defend that lead. I saw a couple of comments when he switched to that back 3 and brought Harry Maguire on, where we were like, some fans were, are we relegation candidates? Why are we defending a lead? We should be beating Brentford. We were beating Brentford. What, you want us to keep attacking relentlessly when it actually opens us up? And we know we've got defensive issues. So why would we just continue to expose them during a game? Ultimately, people can talk about performances and people can talk about systems and all that kind of stuff. In a couple of weeks, the only thing people remember is our results. That is the only thing people remember. We'll talk about this West Ham game. We beat West Ham at the London Stadium. Not many people will remember that game we were terrible and we got battered and we were lucky. And Mark Noble, the penalty last minute, at the end of the game, or it says on the score sheet or wherever, you just see the result and you just see the Premier League table. So it's, to me, and maybe this is, I'm being too pragmatic here, if you are 2-0 up, 70th minute, away from home in the Premier League, which you've seen, by the way, again, the following game we had against Aston Villa, we blew a 2-0 lead. If you don't learn from that, you're not doing your job properly. And maybe that's why it's a bigger thing right now, because we didn't really see that under Ollie. There were lessons that maybe he didn't learn and the team didn't learn, and they made the same mistakes over and over and over again. And maybe they were a bit tactically naive when it came to certain situations. But the fact that Ralf Rangnick has come out and said, look, we have to learn from that experience against Aston Villa. We did learn from that experience against Aston Villa, and we don't want it to happen again. That makes sense. That makes sense. So sometimes it is with formations, isn't it? It's a case of they read too much into it. It's logic. It makes sense. And then he was asked a follow-up question about if the same situation came up, you were 2-0 up, 70 minutes to go, would you do it again? And Ralf Rangnick said, yeah, I would. All teams should be able to play different formations, he said. With the centre-backs we have, we're able to play a back 3. They played a back 3 under Ollie. Why shouldn't we be able to play with a back 3? And he also spoke about the full-backs. He said, actually, Dalot and Telles are probably more valuable as wing-backs because we know of their offensive qualities. And he said it's not just adapting during the game, it's adapting before the game as well. Certain games require different formations. He said it could happen after the international break, but it also depends on the players we have available to us as well. And again, I agree. We're not in that position. We have to know where we are as well. We have to know our own situation right now. We have to know that we're not Manchester City. We're not Liverpool. We don't have this fixed system that blows teams away. We know we're inconsistent. And ultimately, because we're inconsistent and because we don't have a style of play and because, frankly, he doesn't have enough time to implement his style of play. He tried to before with the 4-2-2 and it didn't work. Players didn't like it, or he quickly realised the players just weren't up to it. It's just about getting results at the moment. So any way he does it, that's all he cares about, getting the results. Whether that's playing a 4-3-3 and going, I know this team is fragile. I know we can concede buckets of goals in a matter of seconds like that. Okay, I'm going to switch to a back five. Right, I'm going to defend this lead. I'm going to make sure we get the 3 points because that is my job right now. Patterns of play and systems, they can come later. I've tried to implement it. I've tried my way, but it's not worked. So what have I got to do? I've got to look at this team, look at where they're at, look at mistakes and bad performances that have happened, i.e. Aston Villa, we blew a 2-0 lead, and I can just make sure that never happens again because I know my players. I know their frailties as well. I know that if we're 2-0 up, the game is not over. And because we play in the Premier League and because we play sides that are never willing to give up and because I know that we can concede goals. So it makes sense for me to adapt to that situation. It's just, it makes sense. Nevertheless, let's move on. Let's go to the final question was from Simon Stone. A lot of people talking about, Vegan for Life says the formation talk is just a defection for Harry, LOL. Maguire's probably going to start tomorrow with Lindelöf not being available. Ted says formation means nothing if the players can't be asked. Well, I think exactly. For me, we can talk a lot about formations, but ultimately it's just about results right now. It really is. The final question was from Simon Stone, who focused on the Ronaldo pantomime, the Ronaldo drama of that substitution. Asked about the defensive substitution, as the previous question was about. Obviously, switching to a back five, Cristiano Ronaldo came off. Ronaldo's reaction. He asked Rangnick, have you been able to speak with Ronaldo since then? Obviously, Ronaldo, such a big name, generates such big attention. It gets magnified. How do you deal with that? And he had plenty to say about it, and I think he answered it very well, must be said. Rangnick said, quote, I think we shouldn't make too much of a fuss about it. I can only speak for myself and my coaching staff. I explained to him during the game. We had a little conversation after we scored the third goal. The job of a football manager is to help the team win the game, and it was clear from our experience at Villa Park that this time we have to do things better. We did it better, and the only question was, who do we take off? He is a prolific goal scorer, and he is a player that will always want to play and score goals. He was also asking me, why didn't you take off one of the younger players? The answer came 5 minutes later when one of the younger players scored the third goal. The team is more important than whoever. Cristiano, Edison, Bruno. He asked me why me and not the younger players. And as I mentioned, the answer came 5 minutes later when the younger players scored. So that's very interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. And I'm not going to go in on Ronaldo because I'm not that person. I find it very difficult to criticize Cristiano Ronaldo in certain situations. For instance, that report that came out today, that was, I can't forget the source. It might have been from The Athletic that said that some of the players at Manchester United feel that Cristiano Ronaldo is difficult to approach and Edison Cavani, even in his broken English, is more unifying. And I was like, give me a break. Grow a pair. Cristiano Ronaldo is very intimidating. Well, sorry, he's a teammate and he's a professional footballer. You've got to have a stronger mentality of he's a bit scary. And I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's got an aura around him. But the best players could give a shit who Cristiano Ronaldo is. They would see him as a teammate. And it's the same when it comes to managers. He is just a player ultimately. And I know people will say he's more than just a player, and maybe he is, because of his aura. But he is just a player. And as Ralph Rangnick says, the team is more important than whoever. Not just Cristiano, but Edison Cavani as well, Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, whoever. The team is most important, and the results are most important. And that's more. We need more of that. There are way too many individuals in this side. Cristiano Ronaldo said it himself. We need to come together as a team. We need to come together as a team and be unified as a team. So I do find it quite funny, after just days after he says that, he's coming off and going, why don't you take the younger players off? But that's Cristiano Ronaldo, ultimately. I mentioned before that I felt this whole Ronaldo thing was a bit of a storm in the teacup. You knew as soon as it happened, though, that because the camera was on Ronaldo, he can't get his jacket on. We actually put a short up on the channel, which was highly entertaining with Flex's commentary over it, but he couldn't get the jacket on. He throws it down. He's not sitting on the bench. He's sitting on the stairs, and he's sulking and moaning. But that's Cristiano Ronaldo. That's what he does. And I think if anyone's deserved a bit of slack when it comes to it, it's probably him. And if you think that that is out of the norm for Cristiano Ronaldo, it's not. Like, he doesn't get substituted often, obviously. But as Ralf Rangnick points out, he's been substituted before in his career. He was subbed at Juve, he was subbed at Real Madrid, not that often, but he has been. He was subbed at Manchester United under Sir Alex. He always throws a wobbly. That's what he is. That's what he does. But at the same time, as Ralf Rangnick said, he assisted the second goal, and he mentioned that actually that was probably one of the best tactical positions we found ourselves in the game. The striker came short, allowed Bruno Fernandes, the 8, to run vertically, as Ralf Rangnick said, and assist to Mason Greenwood for the goal. And as Ralf Rangnick said, the team is paramount. The team is absolutely the most important thing, the collective. And ultimately, Cristiano Ronaldo can flail his arms around and can struggle to get on his jacket, and he can moan at Ralf Rangnick during the game, but he knows that too. Like, he knows. And I'm sure that as an experienced player, when he came off and then Manchester United score soon after on the counter-attack, and Ralf Rangnick's saying to him, look, see? You know, that's why we did it. Cristiano Ronaldo knows. And Cristiano Ronaldo can get angry and moan, but the ultimate thing I think that he really, truly cared about at the end of that game is that Manchester United won. Because he doesn't want to be part of a losing team. You know, he said it before. I don't want to be here that Manchester United are 7th or 6th. And if it means coming off after 70 minutes to protect the lead, but we win the game and we actually get top 4, he will be much happier. So his time will come. He will play games. You know, and this is something I guess also he needs to adapt to as well, that as he gets older, we spoke about this on the channel. He doesn't need to play every game. He certainly doesn't need to play 90 minutes in every game he's in. There are going to be situations where he needs to come off for the benefit of the side. As Ralf Rangnick said, you know, if Cristiano Ronaldo was on the pitch for that third goal, would he have scored? Who knows? Maybe. But football's not a game of maybes. We saw what happened at Villa Park, and that couldn't happen again. And it didn't happen again. And Ralf Rangnick, in my opinion, was absolutely right to make that call. And it's just a case of it's Cristiano Ronaldo. So because it's Cristiano Ronaldo, people are just going to focus in on him, and the people are going to know that pictures of Ronaldo being angry and flailing his arms and scowling like this on the bench and being unhappy gets clicks, it gets shared on social media, it gets reads in the newspapers. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the most followed guy or athlete or person in the world. So if he's unhappy and there's drama, you could already hear the journalists licking their lips and rubbing their hands like that going, we've got a story, brother. That's what they do. We've got over 400 people watching, only 121 likes, guys. Man, I've been so caught up in all of the questions and all of the answers by Ralf Rangnick, I forgot to say smash a like on the like button. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Otherwise I'll get told off by Flex and Josh and Mike Phelan himself. I've said this several times. People think that Josh and Mike Phelan himself are the same person. They are not. These are different people. People need to understand this. You know, people think it's a whole like Batman Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark Iron Man situation. There is no alter ego. They are separate people. Okay? And I'm keeping that up. People don't understand. As Steffi Jenks said, exactly, Mike Phelan will pop in. I don't want to feel his wrath. Okay? He'll throw an iPad at me or something. And maybe he'll take the little pencil thing, stylus, and jab me in the eye or something. He might do that. I don't want that. I'm meant to be doing the match for you tomorrow. How can I do that with an iPad sticking out my head? It'd be entertaining, to be honest, but I don't want to do it. EDT says, you're lying. We all know the truth. They're the same guy. You got no proof. Where's your proof? There is no proof. It's the same as well. He's got a different voice. When Bruce Wayne talks, he sounds normal, and when Batman talks, he speaks like this. I'm vengeance. Different people. I'm not. Well, let's not get into it, okay? We're talking about different stuff. Anyway, guys, look, big day coming up tomorrow. Of course, we've got a full match day experience. We've got the road trip with Flex is going to be up during the day, earlier on in the day. Match View is with me tomorrow. I'm back on the Match Views, which, sorry, it's not, because my record on the Match Views is not great. It's awful, frankly. But let's hope that tomorrow I can actually get a good result. But sorry, I blame KG. If he wasn't going to the game, I wouldn't be doing the match view. So blame him. Don't blame me. And keep the protest going. The KO show. Make it happen. We need to make that show happen. I'm still getting messages. I'm still getting messages from people saying, when's the KO show going to happen? I don't know. Bombard Flex. Tweet him now. Everyone, all nearly 400 people. 400 tweets. KO show needs to happen. Anything's possible. So tomorrow, yes, I'm on the match view, and then I'll have the match reaction after the game. I think I'll be joined by DJ. I think a lot of people are at the game tomorrow, so I think it'll be DJ and myself after the game. So I'm doing a marathon. I need to, with the shape I'm in at the moment. So I'll be doing the full view after the game with myself and DJ. Then, of course, we'll have all of the fan views with Flex outside of Old Trafford, including KG, which is always an interesting one. So plenty to come tomorrow. So now is the perfect time to subscribe. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live. And every video gets posted tomorrow and all that fun stuff. And I think Sunday, means because we've got Saturday, Sunday we're going to have a full view, hopefully with a full house. So that's exciting too. We're only 3 likes away from 150 as well. If I get out of here with 150 likes, then I probably won't get fired or something like that. That's the hope. That's the hope. Rotem says, call him King KG. Never. King of the Indie says the KO show featured Kevin Owens. That's my only concern about calling it the KO show is I think that might be like a copyright WWE thing, and I don't want to. I don't want to get like sued or something. Not that kind of sue. Hopefully she'll come out tomorrow as well. Sue. I think one of the last times I did a match view was the Norwich and the penalty, and I waved at Sue, who was in Morrison's. So maybe that'll come out tomorrow as well. Anyway, I'm rambling, guys. Be sure to join us tomorrow. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I'm out of here, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.